So I want to give you a different form and begin to talk about the stories we need to tell. We have recognized, and you know better than anyone, who these students are that then go on to become the leaders in our community. So I want to look at 4 different categories and introduce them with a very personal story of a student who I met when they were at Hillel during college. We have used through Hillel various engagement and educational vehicles in order to meet these students. But let's go through the 4 categories. First, students on searches for meaning. At University of California, Santa Barbara, we met David Siegelman when he was the Hillel student president. David, when he graduated, tells me that he gained the self-confidence and understanding not only of his leadership potential, for which he's eternally grateful to Hillel, but for recognizing that he understood that what his peers needed after graduation looked different than what was being offered. And so he went out very intentionally and built a network, not only in North America, but around the world, to bring together young adults in an organization called Moishe House that was meant to be responsive and involve as prosumers the community members who were both living together, but also reached out to their social networks to bring in others as well. So that's one way in which we do it. A second way in which we do it is from our example of Jason, who we met as a student intern, as an entry point in his journey in the CPI program. And I know we probably have in this room, over the past decade or two, JCSC fellow alumni. Any shout out from the room? We have recognized that when we succeed in engaging and gaining the attention, that's the battleground, is gaining the attention of young adults. And when you have them, the potential to unleash their passions as part of our volunteer or professional leadership, as in Jason's case, is really something very powerful. The third category, global citizenship. Now, we did a lot of really hard work 6 years ago when we were doing the research on the strategic plan, and I'm thrilled to have one of my partners, Amy Morgenstern, here with us again to check in on how we're doing 5 years later. But one of the really important recognitions we made at that time was in articulating a value that we all sort of knew, but just simply could not put our hands around until we actually articulated it in a value. The value was in recognizing that today's Jewish students are both universally human and distinctively Jewish. And it was ridiculous to think about asking young adults to make a choice between those two things. And we all know, in our programs, that attempt to reach out and help others and do good deeds, whether it's called tzedek or tikkun olam, we know that this instinct among Jews living today in relative privilege is a very strong one. And that's where we met Ellie Winkleman at UC at Scripps, actually, at the time. She had a real passion for the issue of dealing with the genocide in Darfur and of the corresponding concern about hunger. She created an organization at the time on campus called Challah for Hunger. And Challah for Hunger, very quick, people familiar with from either campus? Yes. On campus, it spread very quickly, but also after she graduated, she moved it into young adult social networks. And again, found a venue to find meaning on that universally human side, but to put a new lens of Jewishness around it. Finally, in this 4th category of Jewish leadership, we know at Hillel that we've met Jewish student activists for our entire history. They've come to us, we've found them, we have a synergy with Jewish student leadership. But you know, sometimes I think people misunderstand the passions, and you all know this. So when I first met Ariel Berry and Aharon Horowitz when they were sophomores at Columbia, there were many in the world that sort of had labeled them as Israel activists with a certain political agenda at the time, because they were taking on their professors at the time who they felt were giving a really inaccurate and unfair depiction of Israel in the classroom. And they tried to make the case with their university officials, they tried to make the case with the professors, and in the end, because they felt no one was listening to them, by the time they graduated as seniors, they decided to share a film that they made about what they felt was happening. But to understand and to stereotype those guys and the social network of friends that they worked with, other student filmmakers and the like, to understand them and try to classify them is to misunderstand where their real passion came from. Their passion came from their strength of Jewish identity, as many of the Jewish leaders in our community who have built our organizations and our communities for many years. And so today, Aharon and Ariel have created, using some of the same techniques but continuing to innovate, the Present Tense Institute, which operates both in Jerusalem as an idea incubator, finding other young social entrepreneurs and placing them and working collaboratively with Jewish federations and communities and young adults around the world in new ways in order to promote innovation, to offer micro brands, to encourage their ideas, and to build the Jewish community in a positive way. Now, all of these examples that we offer, the external data from the Avichai Foundation, the individual stories, are all critical in how we are going to be able to explain what it is we do and what our accomplishments are. Now, we have internally recognized the power of us being able to communicate together. And although it's not easy, it's important to know that when we speak about the REACH data system, that we're talking about storytelling, about actually having the ability to aggregate all of these incredible stories about the students that we are interacting with in the various forms of their journeys. What does that data look like? Well, it looks like that. That's our data. To date, 88,000 student journeys that we're tracking on over 145 campuses. When we leave from St. Louis, that is going to help you tell the story that you need to make. And after I finish, I'm going to invite up a colleague who will share how some of the best non-profits, what they are looking at in order to be able to tell their stories in the most effective way to their stakeholders. Now, I want to transition now to the second area that I believe that